Friends, welcome back to Value Vintage Cards. I'm going to be sharing in this video a whole bunch of R cards. What I'd like to do in the near future is do a deep dive on each set. Um, Most of these, as I look around my table, probably all but one, I've got a pretty decent start and run. Not full Hall of Fame runs or anywhere near sets. I don't really go for sets. But I have a pretty solid, example of what's in the sets, except for one. So I do have one set that I need to work on, and um, it's an odd set. So when I get to it, I'll show you the one card I have from that set, which is, you can tell that hurts my soul a little bit to say. So I want to dive in. So I'm going to go the R3s, R310, R311, R312, R313, R314, R315, R316, as they're defined and explained. Some of these have other names that they might be known by. Um, so you may have heard of it called by like a issuer name rather than the R designation. And I do think that's an interesting little twist too in how we collect and how we know things. Um, it's no right wrong answer. I mean, you say Mr. Cub, I say Ernie Banks. It doesn't really make anything any different. We mean the same thing. But it is interesting how people just note these things. Um, kind of what sticks in your head. So maybe it's just the organizational side of my brain that I kind of like knowing the set series designation, and that helps me associate things if name escapes me. But let's get kicking. I do want to run through all these. I think it's really fun to see kind of the R series. Oversize is exactly my jam. It's my favorite thing. At this point, I absolutely love it. I think you get such a bang for the buck. I think you get some really amazing images, and um, I think it's tremendous value. So, it's vintage, it's value, it's why I call my channel what I do. So let's get kicking on R310. What you'll hear these called often is Butterfinger. Um, I want to use a couple different examples just to show some of the variants. I picked up this Hornsby, and one of them just sold for a really solid price. If you're watching this and you got that card, good job. Um, so what you'll see, on the other hand, a lot of times things like this, if I were to take this out, and I actually really enjoy having some of these that are not in cases other than top loaders, not graded, not slabbed. Yes, it gives you some risk of doing additional damage, but the ability to take the item out and actually touch and feel what the card or item, I use the word item a lot with oversize, um, feels like is important. So for this, it's basically a newspaper type texture. They're very fragile. That's why you see rips. A lot of times with these, you'll see pinholes. People enjoyed cleaning them up. This one, it looks like probably one of the reasons that there's stuff missing. You can see the corners. So I'm hoping this shows up in the video pretty well, but there's some pretty significant leftover residue. So somebody probably put, tape or something in all four corners. I'd imagine this might be on a wall more than a scrapbook, but could be either. But the images you get, other thing that's weird at this set that some they had to do quite a bit. Depending on the size of the image, they didn't like expand it or zoom it or any of the kind of things that we would do in today's technology. What they did is they basically just put like a colored out strip and just said we can't quite fill the 8 by 10 image, so let's go ahead and just we'll kind of blank in the sides here and give you the image as it's intended and as it was originally taken. So pretty cool Rogers Hornsby item. Um, this set has kind of four tiers. There's a lot of common players. There's a lot of great deals for lesser known. I hate saying, I mean, second tier, I guess, non inner circle Hall of Famers. And you can grab some of those for 20, 30, 40 bucks. Sometimes they're going to be in that condition, sometimes they're not. And then you've got Kind of another tier. You know, your Geringer, your Hornsby, um, Lefty Grove, Bill Dickey are kind of in there. Melot, tough to find. Where they're pricey. They're just like any other card would be from that era. They're, you know, triple figure price. Nothing crazy, but tough to find. And then you've got your top tier, where you've got I think the top tier is probably just two guys. I would keep Dizzy Dean probably in that tier below, Jimmy Fox in the tier just below. Your two big hitters that you might have a comma in the price, Babe Ruth, and I've shared this one before, but I will share it every time I can. Lou Gehrig. So when you look at that image, and again, that's what draws me into a lot of these. It's fun when they're shared images and you get to see it, you know, different perspectives, different size, different angles, something like that. But I don't know where else you see this image. If anybody knows another item that has this Lou Gehrig image, let me know. But I can't think of one off the top of my head for sure. So R310, this is one of the few sets that I will just call a Butterfinger all the time. They're always blank back. This one has, and that's what's kind of surprising. When you look at the back of this, there is some clear tape residue, and actually some parts missing. You're buying it so it looks like this on my shelf, which you'll see this on my shelf sometimes. Um, got a 1.5 from Beckett. I don't know. Don't worry about grades on these ever. A's will look nicer than 1.5s. And a lot of times it's back damage, it's a pinhole, it's tape left on the back, and who cares? So sorry to linger too long on that set, but I did want to represent a little bit on that. Next set, R311, is a um, kind of like two type of item set. There's actually two like subsets within anything designated as R311. They are 1936. It's the other thing that's kind of odd. Butterfinger's 34. This is 36. Years and series aren't consecutive. It's kind of like the E series with caramels, you know, E21, 20, 22s. Um, Consecutive doesn't mean a year sequence. So that is never going to be how you identify anything other than the set it's in. So R311 has two types. Again, this is one of my absolute favorite, coolest things in the world. Joe DiMaggio. My wife and I are actually just researching him. Amazing player. Not too sure. I mean, it's a different era, but not sure how his marriage really went with Marilyn Monroe. But um, my wife likes celebrities and Hollywood stuff, so we dive in. So we have a little bit different perspective on the Joe DiMaggio scenario. But how cool is that? You get DiMaggio, you get Tony Lazzari, and then Frank Cressetti's not exactly like a no name. This is what we would call a leather finish. So you can probably tell it looks a little rougher. It's actually thicker. Again, the importance of having these things not slabbed. So you can take them out and actually feel how it's intended to feel. I'm not going to take it out on camera because I don't want to be rushing through and not focusing on exactly that. I'm going to touch that Joe DiMaggio piece. I want to make sure I'm focusing on that. But there's a whole series of leather finish. Um, the players that are in one series are not necessarily in the other series. In fact, I think for the most part they're not in both series. I'll have to see how many are in both series, if any. Um, Raising questions. That's why I want to do an entire video on each set. The other version you can get for R311 is Glossy. And I've shared that one before. My good friend Jason has this exact item. Um, and again, the grade is super secondary. When you find some extreme outlier where it's like a 5, maybe it has some premium value to it. I feel like a lot of times in auctions, you'll actually see pretty big cluster in price between A's, ones, twos, threes. Like you don't see a big premium based on condition. You just want to see a nice example. Difference between this and a one probably is a one has, you know, a small pinhole or a piece of tape on the back. Does nothing to the presentation of the item. But these are glossy. So the finish, I do have a couple of these not graded. It feels a little more like a photograph, a little more of a shiny texture. Shiny's a look. Is that a texture? I don't know. I think I just made that up. Um, but it feels more like something you'd almost get like as a reprint picture to put on your wall kind of idea. But amazing images. That Dizzy Dean is super cool, obviously. That's R311. R312, I think some people will absolutely love, and some people will say not for me. Very similar set to some of the next couple you'll see in terms of size and display. They're a little more of the postcard size. Um, More or less real images, but with almost like a watercolor to it. And some of them they get a little uh, interpretive. They kind of give them almost like a makeup having look. And this one's one of them, but this is one of my favorite cards in the entire world. Um, Me and Jeannie knew I would say that, and if I'm going to show one or two from this set, I'm going to show this one. But Connie Mack and Lefty Grove together. One of the other amazing things, if you're diving into these, I know some people say like they don't like team cards. When I've done like a this or that video, I don't know that combo cards count that way. I call these combos. It's more than one player together. But you get Connie Mack and Lefty Grove. I'm a big Lefty Grove collector, and Connie Mack is obviously Mount Rushmore of managers, I would think. Hey, video idea. Maybe we'll do that. But these are again blank back. This one has, you're noticing a recurring theme. These bother me 0%. A little bit of tape damage on the back. It means somebody loved it enough to either keep it in a important book to them, or they put it on their wall, which is, you know, that was like the designation of important to you if you want to put it on display and see it every day. So, Connie Mack and Lefty Grove, R312. It is designated as a 1936 set as well. This next one, I want to get as many of this guy as I could from that era because when you think about his, rookie card, we always think it's 38. Um, was that like the Gouty heads up, big head looking item? This one's crazy. I'm actually a little surprised it got slabbed. Um, I'll show you why in a second. Front has a big old owie to it. Um, I don't always mind those. And it's on like, I mean, why SGC had to put this on a tray table is beyond me, but image itself, pretty decent. Joe DiMaggio with a whole lot of glare. Um, but the Joe D is pretty gosh darn cool. And again, you're looking at like 38's his rookie card. These are 36 issues. The back is why the front actually is, crazy with that extra little chunk of something going on. But on the back, I think there's literally a piece of paper stuck to this one. So I would say I'm okay. Happy to have that crazy oversized Joe DiMaggio rookie era piece. So R312, um, I kind of call it the watercolor set. I don't know if that's something I read or made up, but that's how I think of that. It's got these um, somewhat artistic impression colors added to basically real images. R313 has a couple of different names to it. One is Fine Pen, and you'll see why. And the other is National Shekel, however you want to say that. Show a couple. Lefty Grove. They have examples of players. It's going to be Hornsby's and Groves and some of those type of main core people in my collection. These are quite often in decent shape. Again, condition, you guys know me, I love a good 1 or 1.5. This one's a 2. Almost wish I could have found it in a little bit more loved condition, but 2 solid. Uh, but for a 1936 postcard size item, blank back, There's nothing wrong with that. It's called Fine Pen because you'll notice their signatures are very thin. So it's like it's written with a very fine tip pen. Lefty Grove image, again, that's one you don't necessarily see a whole lot of places. And the other thing I love about these sets is they do so many neat, unique poses and combos of players. So this next one, um, it's got all the fun stuff. It's got writing on it. Um, I always say I'm a pre-war pusher, and somebody said I'm king of oversized at this point because I just love the oversized pieces. But if Mookie is the pinhole guy, I might be like the writing on the back guy. I absolutely enjoy um, getting a card that looks better than the grade or better than the price because it's had somebody scribble on it 90 years ago. So the next one is an amazing combination of players and combos. I either want it to be all stars or if I can get this, all Hall of Famers. Come on now, that's insane. Look at that. Big old crease in the corner, but it's right over Fox's shoulder. Got Jimmy Fox misspelled. Also love that. Got Al Simmons. My dad's name is Aloysius. That's Al Simmons' full name, so good old school Polish name. And then you got Mickey Cochran, who was the inspiration for Mickey Mantle's name. How sweet is that? And then again, like images you just don't see other places. So R313, the reason I say I love the writing on the back, um, whether they're with the A's or with the Red Sox, I feel like you get the collector of the other team and they're going to relabel that and be like, no, they're not. They're not with Oakland and that. They're with the Boston Red Sox. Um, even though if you look at their hats, those all say A. um, so must have been somebody that was collecting Jimmy Fox or Red Sox because I don't think Cochran and Simmons ever played for them. Simmons went to the White Sox. I think Cochran was what, Detroit and the A's, I think. But those are fine pen. Again, very thin writing on the names. The next one, I just shared this one. And I have a couple different ones here to show some of the variants. 1937, 36, 37. I always get confused which is which. So this would be, what are we at? R314. It's a Gaudi issue, wide pen. I just showed that one. This one seems to have a little bit of a yellowy tint. I don't think that's just aging. I think that's, not quite sepia kind of tone, but more of a yellow finish to it. An amazing real photograph image of what's used on Diamond Stars and Gaudi. So that image you might actually feel like is a little bit familiar, but it's because we see it on more like artistic impression on cards. Um, love the Carl Hubble blank back 4.5. This is the one Mike Moynihan wanted to get at Strongsville, and um, this was the last card I bought. Walking around, I missed out on one and saw it at the Strongsville show, and I said that's a good time to pick that up. There is two online right now, I think. One's a 5, so really, really nice shape, and it seems like a fair-ish price. I think it's or best offer, and then there was an auction going that I don't know if it's still going as I release this, but it was like 99 bucks. Um, not not that great condition, but um, 100 bucks for a Carl Hubble, amazing image. I love this. I absolutely love that image. Next one I got. This is a really interesting piece. It's one you don't see come up for auction very often. These sets are not. The sets are big enough that it feels like they're somewhat available, but when you look for a specific player, they're fairly tough to find. You might find one out there, you might find two, but you're not finding like 8 of anybody. So within this, and again, looking at the writing, Hubble I didn't point it out as well, but this one I will. Um, these are called wide pens. So the fine pen, obviously very thin in the writing, usually pretty small. The wide pens are ginormous. I just thought that Earl Combs image, it's not Earl Coombs. They actually misspelled his first and last name. Earl is with an E and Combs is with one O. So they really didn't do him any respect on this card, but they sure did with the image. Again, you don't see that image anywhere else that I know of. But what a cool perspective. If you're going to be doing, like a posed in action kind of shot like that, that angle is very unique and cool. So very happy to snag that and add that to the collection. So those are the R314s. R315 is the one I'm lacking examples. I have one, and I just shared this because I picked it up at Strongsville. Um, these I feel like you see a lot trimmed. I don't quite know why, and cut really poorly. The set is actually pretty gosh darn cool. I need to do a deep dive on it. There's one or two others I'd like to add for sure, but there's a really neat looking Garrig, picture of him fielding, which is not common. There's a great Ruth. I looked up the Ruths. I think there's only between SGC and PSA. I mean, somewhere under 100, maybe 80 something graded. Which that's always my standard. I go to the biggest guy in the set and see how many do you find. So I did pick up this guy, of course. So if there's Hornsby, I will snag it. Um, these are a 1928, 29. I believe it's like a 2-year issue. Um, I think I've seen these called 29s as well. There's a really neat Carl Hubble where they misspell his first name with a K, um, which is probably his most rookie-ish first card issue that you can find. Great images again. Like I would like to have Garrick, I would like to have Hubble, I would like to have Jimmy Fox, I'd like to have Lefty Grove. Um, the checklist of the era in late 20s, most of the big guys are in there. So um, very cool set. I only have one. And actually, speaking of misspelled names, look what they did to poor Hornsby there. Roger, come on. He's so good, he's plural. Roger Hornsby, come on, guys. Um, and again, he's in the right jersey. So sorry, Cardinal fans, but always good to see him in a Cubs jersey. Last one. This set, I almost feel like you never hear of it called an R316, and for good reason. It's just always called Kashin. So the Kashin set's pretty popular as well. Not quite postcard size. In fact, you can actually find. I'm trying to think if I have any Kashins in a regular slab. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm making that up. They are a little bit wider than a normal slab would be. So again, I'm going to share my Lefty Grove because if I'm going to have the set, I'm going to have Lefty Grove, right? Cash and Great List. This is the one, the Babe Ruth is quadruple printed, so it's actually it's still population wise when you compare it to like Gaudi, it's still mega rare and scarce. But for whatever reason, because you see that a little more commonly than the other cards in the set, it gets discounted, which is, I think at some point people will realize it's a great deal. I think it's going to see a Sinella type spike, and it's going to probably take a jump. Um, is my guess. You can get Garrick in the set. Obviously, Lefty Grove, Jimmy Fox, Mel Ott. Like, there's a whole amazing list. The Mel Ott would be considered a rookie. Condition of these. This one's a 3, I guess. All that really means it probably is there's no creasing. The backs are almost always going to have a little bit of like age, love, coloration. The shading on the back, sometimes you'll see um, almost like an outline of the card, and that's just because of the way it's printed and designed. So there's my Lefty Grove. Pretty common image. You see these images used other places, um, but that does not bother me whatsoever. The other one, we're going to stay thematic. This one got a 1. This is a freaking great 1. So Rogers Hornsby. Again, if you're going to get ones, get them like that, right? Isn't that what we look for? Whether that's fairly graded, undergraded, or, just the best example of what a one can look like. Get the team designation at the bottom there, get his name, back of this thing, straight glare. Thanks. That's a PSA fault, or in fact, it's a fairly bright blank. I guess you can see a line through that. I don't think that's a crease. It's just a print line. Oh, I see it now. Oof. Mookie. If Mookie Chilson sees this, tag him. I mean, 25 minutes in. Takes a real friend to watch this long, but if you look within his bat, there's a pinhole. That's why it's a one. Dang. Best case scenario. It's like a four with a pinhole. Couldn't really see it till I looked in the back. You see a little, there it is, little dot. So somebody loved that enough to put that on their wall. Um, and then somebody decided to slab it, which I guess for protection's sake, but as a pinhole, it's going to get a one. I'm not sure what the benefit of that is, except to make it easier to sell and authenticate that it's real. We hope. But that is my run through. That's R3, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So that's 7 sets. Um, Maybe in the next several weeks, maybe every couple of weeks, I'll do a little bit of a deep dive on each of these sets. And that might give me enough time to pick up another R315 so I can feel a little better about myself and represent the set a little better. So that's what I got for you today. I hope all my pre-war fans are open and excited for oversized items. Um, Anybody collect these sets? I always love seeing what people share. Is there a set or two here that you've taken a deep dive on, or do you collect all of them, or if it's not in a standard size top loader, do you just bail on it and say I don't want it? So always fun to see what people think. I will catch y'all on the next one, and very soon I'll start deep diving on these. So thanks for watching this launch. Appreciate it. Take care.